Hi guys, and welcome back to the Caravan Quilt Show, the Caravan Quilt Show, the Caravan. Hey guys, I hope you're well and you're having a really fantastic day. So today we are going to be moving on to the Bargello quilt, and yes, it's going to be a scrappy one yet again because we are making 10 scrappy quilts in this Caravan quilting series. So I hope you're taking part. So get those scraps ready and let's get started. Okay guys, so I have all of my scraps here. Okay, now I have decided to get all of my strips into 2.5. okay, so you can do yours from lights, mediums, darks, okay, and lay them out in that variation, or lay them out into mediums, darks and lights. It really doesn't matter. Remember, it's a scrappy one, so have fun with it and play with it. Don't stress about it at all. The whole idea of this is to have fun. Okay, so remember that. So once you've laid it out in whatever formation you're going to use it as, or the number of strips you're going to use. So let's say, for example, you're going to be using 5 strips, okay, and you've done it in mediums, lights and darks. What I would like you to do is continue that rhythm again in the same place. So wherever you started with and what you end, you're going to do the same for the next batch. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So this is my long strip. Okay, so I've sewn all of my 2.5s together and I've created a long strip. Now what I have done is started from this end there, okay, and I've stopped there and I've started that color pattern all the way down. Okay, so I've done 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you can go as long as you want, it doesn't really matter. Okay, you can make your strip set width-wise longer or lengthwise, it really doesn't matter. The most important thing is that what you start with and your end is important. Now what we're going to do now is to fold this together, long ends together, and we're going to create a tube and we're going to sew these two edges together. Now once you've done that, we need then to line this up on our quilting mat and cut it into 2.5 strips. Alright guys, so I have now stitched this together. This is my first and this is my last. Remember, it's the same color pattern or color layout throughout the whole strip set. Okay, so I've now stitched it together into a tube and you can see the other side in there. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to iron it first before I trim, because obviously we've got some rough edges at the end down there and we've still got some rough edges at the end here. We need to straighten it out. So as I said, we're going to cut it into 2.5. However, before we do that, we must iron these really lovely and flat. So for example, as you can see, I have one here sort of twisted over and I want that laying flat. So I'm going to put some steam on the iron and iron this really lovely and flat, and then trim and then cut into 2.5. All right, so I have now ironed both sides, okay, to the strip set, and I'm just lining it all up together. And remember, when you fold, make sure it's really sort of flat in the middle here and it is not creased or folded up, otherwise you'll get bow cuts. If you're not confident about that, then leave it open and cut it, okay, which might be easier for you. It depends on the length of your mat anyway. Now what you need to do is cut it to the shortest strip. Now it may seem like you may lose some, yes you will, but at the same time you just need to make sure that it's lovely and even. Okay, so I'm just going to cut off the extra. Just move that up a little bit and then get the end there. Okay, and up here as well, hence the reason why I was folding, so then you wouldn't have to do that. All right, so I'll do this side folded, so then again you see what I'm referring to. Now what I have decided to do, even though I am trimming all of the extra off, or the excess off, what I am doing though, I am not going to get rid of it. I am going to keep that again as scraps, and obviously our series is about scraps, so I'm not going to get rid of these pieces here. I am going to keep them. again line that up using the lines on your ruler, sorry, as well as your mat, and cut again. Just making sure that's trimmed up nicely. Lovely, good. So again, don't get rid of that, okay? That can be used to make something else. All right, so what we're going to do now is now cut these into 2.5 strips, and we're going to go all the way down until we actually get our strips. Now, I haven't counted how much I'm going to get. It doesn't really matter. At this point, I am just making the strip set until I get the size quilt that I actually want. So lining again, using the mat, 1, 2.5, 1, 2.5, and cut. All right, so we put that there. So that's my half, and again I'm going to do my 2. So always double check, half, 1, 2. Again, I'm using the mat. Now, I often use the mat. Very seldom I actually use the ruler for cutting. I use the ruler mainly for keeping the blade notched against it so that it doesn't move. But that's my technique. I don't know what your technique is. As long as you have 2.5, then you're good to go. I love this little rotary cutter. It is fantastic. I would go as far as saying it's the best one I've ever had. Yeah, I'm sorry, I would definitely say that. It's the best one I've ever had. Because I often use the bigger ones, but this little one is just perfect. Absolutely perfect. I love it. So again, half, 1, 2. Right, and whatever extra you have, remember, do not get rid of it. We're going to save it for another day, or we may even use it in the quilt. So that is not, let's have a look, this is literally 2 inches. All right, so what we're going to do now is open these up and start laying out the quilt so you can actually see what it looks like. So once you finish, you should literally have a ring, or a chain I should say, okay, of squares. Alright guys, so I've laid it all out, and this is what the quilt top looks like so far. I haven't started to sew together at the moment. I did, however, start with a 2-inch strip in the middle. Remember, after I cut all of my strips from the tube, I had a 2-inch strip left. And so rather than getting rid of that, I actually started with that one in the middle of the actual quilt itself, and then I worked my way out. Now what I am going to do is to start to sew this together, as I said, and I am going to start with just pinning them front sides together. I'm going to start in the far corner, so I'm going to start over here, pin it together, and just work my way towards myself. Okay, once I've done that and I've stitched it together, I will then show you on a very flat surface what the whole quilt top looks like. Now, just a reminder, once you started doing yours and you have it either in the smaller strips, don't get rid of it. You can always fit it in within the actual quilt top itself. Remember, it is a scrappy quilt, so the objective is to use as much scrap as possible. All right, so that is where we are at the moment. Let's continue and move on to the next stage. All right, so now that we have our chain, we are going to officially make our unpicker, and I'm looking for it. We're going to make our unpicker our best friend. So I'm going to lay them out and show you how to lay this out in that traditional Bargello pattern. Now what you need to bear in mind is that we are using scraps. You most likely will see a dominant color come out whether it may be the purple that I've used or the flowery strong blue. Okay, now remember I mix mine in lights and darks and mediums. You can do yours variating from lights to darks to medium, sorry, to lights, medium to dark, so you can show that color variation, or you can mix it up. I think I've slightly mixed it up, to be honest, which is sort of what I was going for, but I have lights, mediums and darks prints. Okay, and I do feel that they are contrasting with each other. So I'm going to lay them out. This is the, as I said, best opportunity, the only time that I actually smile, when I have to use these things. In all honesty, I don't really use it that much, so I'm quite proud of myself. But today it's going to become my best friend. So let's get on picking. The first one, so remember, this is my first here. All right, and that's my last. So we're going to start with this 2.5 inch square as we have at the moment. Now, what I'm thinking about, because I like to think about changes of the quilt as I make it, because obviously I'm making the pattern or I'm writing the pattern as I make it. All right, so what I have been thinking, that whatever strips I have left, I may fit them in. So like, for example, the last set of cuts I had 2 inches, so I may either slot that in the end or in the middle. But let's see what happens. I don't think it will make much difference, because traditionally a Bargello quilt has different sizes of strips, isn't it? The sizes go up in increments, so come down in increments. So that is what we're going to do. So whatever we have left over, whether it's 1 inch or whether it's a 2 inch or 1.5, we'll slot it in. It is a scrappy quilt after all, so let's make use of all the scraps rather than fitting it into something else. All right, so let's see what happens. Now when you do this, just take your time. Obviously you don't want to put any holes in the fabric. All right, now just unpicking the first and last, and I'm going to lay this out as my first row. Now if you wanted to start in the middle, you can. Okay, so let's try this out. Let's start in the middle and see what actually happens. So I'm going to put that in the middle there. Okay, and obviously the next one down will be that one there, will be this one here. Now what I have done, okay, is to lay them out in the colors that I would need. So the first one was this one here. Okay, so what I have done is folded it in the area that I need it. So this is my second, this is my third, this is my fourth, and then so on and so forth. Okay, so it just means that I don't now have to figure it all out again. I've already done it. Once I've completed the ironing, I just sat there and fold the second color or the third color down. So I know immediately when I pick it up, I have it all. Now, if you were to get interrupted, what you can do is take a pin and pin it together like that. So in that way, when you come back, you know that's your next one and the whole stack has actually stayed together. All right, so I'm going to put that one down. In fact, I'm going to pin it back so that I don't accidentally touch it. And now I'm just going to unpick these two together separately. So I'm going to continue and unpicking and lay them all out, and then I will show you what it looks like. So I've completed all of the sewing together now to make up the Bargello quilt. Now what I wanted to go through is the color formation as well as the layout of each of the strips. Now this is very important. If you notice, the purple is very much the dominant color, and that's the color that shows up mostly. It is a scrappy one, okay, just remember that. There are some blues in it, and I'll point them out to you because I know you would not have noticed had I not shown where I ran out of the fabric. Now this is all the fabric that was left in this particular remnant that I had. Okay, so for example, this blue one here, it's different to this one. Okay, also I have used it more or less a few bits throughout because obviously, as I said, I ran out. However, some of the squares I had to piece together. So for example, this one in the corner over here, I had to piece that just to get that final 2.5 stitch. Now, even though these are made with all of the same size, i.e. 2.5, so remember it's long strips together, and then I lay them out in the color pattern or lights, darks and mediums that I wanted to. Okay, and then I stitch them together, and then once I've done that, I created my tube and then I cut them down into 2.5 yet again. Now you don't have to stick with 2.5. I did that because I know I didn't have much scraps in order to show that sort of variant color pattern or movement of the actual blocks themselves. Okay, so I only had a very small amount in order to do this. If you've got a lot more scraps, by all means you can keep going with a different color pattern and definitely show it. You can turn this upside down and then so you show that V wave and upside, sort of a W sort of pattern you can get, or change it entirely. Okay, if you also do thinner strips, so in the middle here, this one is not 2 inches, this is 1.5. Yeah, and that was the extra left from the strip, and I made that my center. So then each on the side was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so in total I have 7 plus 7, 14, and the one in the middle 15. Okay, so you can go bigger as much as you're happy with, but what I'm going to do now is add on 2 borders because I really want to frame it up so that it shows the colors and just brings it alive. I think it's fine here as it is. It's a little bit too small. As usual, I'm going to working with lap quilt size because I don't want to make them too big. I don't have the fabric to make them too big either way, but because I'm in the caravan, I'm keeping them to lap size, which I think is ideal. So I'm going to move on and add on the 2 borders onto this. I think I'll go with a white one first to frame it off, and I think I'm going to end with a blue border again to raise the blue out of the quilt top as it is. Now for me, as you've known, if you follow my channel, you know that I like to do a color pattern within my quilts. I don't like it to be unstructured scrappy. I love it to look like a structured scrappy quilt, so hence the reason I'm going with white and blue. So I'm using colors that's within the quilt top itself. I could go for purple, I'm not sure about that. Guys, it is the purple stands out really strong. Loving the pattern. I think the strips of fabric, or the scraps of fabric in this case, complemented it. I didn't really plan it, to be honest. I used what I had and what I thought would work really well. Okay, so let's continue, get the borders on, and then I'll move on to the quilting. Now for the quilting, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'll be very honest, guys. I may do some feathers, and I may focus in areas such as here to do a feather there. So I may just do feathers all along the middle, okay, and then do some swirls at the end. Not sure as yet, but that's what my brain is saying at the moment. I did thought about doing dot to dot and doing curves, but I think that may take a very long time, and I don't really want to do that. So I think it might just be feathers and swirls and paisley. I'm not sure as yet, but I'm sure when I get onto the machine, my brain will sort of get in gear as to what I want to do. So let's move on to that now, and let's see what it turns out like. It's going to be a surprise for you and me. Okay guys, so the Bargello quilt is completed. This quilt measures 57 by 38 and it has come together very nicely. It didn't take too long. In fact, you can actually get this done in a week. The piecing was quite simplistic. There was no issues altogether. I did some free motion quilting, I did some swirls, and I did some paisleys. Now what I would say guys is that, you know, it is quite interesting working in such a small environment, and I would encourage you that if you do have a small environment to work with, don't get put off by it, because you can get it done with a bit of planning, determination, and just working out exactly the type and size of quilts that you are going to make. I mean, I am actually making lap size quilts, which works out really nicely, and again, mainly because of the size in terms of the space that I have to use. But the Bargello quilt itself, it's a simplistic design. It's just using 2.5 strips, and literally that is what it is. Basically, that's form of your small squares. So overall, a really good experience, quite positive. It's a beginner quilt. Use up all of your scraps, make use of them. Everything was scraps, even the borders. As you can see, I did use some left over there, and these are literally the trimmings that I cut off once I actually was cutting it into those long strips. But overall, very simplistic process. The white, they all have different patterns. Again, it is strips or scraps of fabric. Even the binding, it's a different color of purple. You may not be able to see that on the screen, but it is a different color of purple. For example, if you look here, you can see that one of the purple is darker. So again, it's playing tricks on the eyes and using similar color palettes that makes it looks not scrappy. All right, so again, if you look there, you can see that the blue is different to the floral that's used without. And of course, the reason for that is because it is a scrappy quilt and you can only use what you have. But overall guys, beautiful process, really lovely. Enjoyed making it. Enjoy the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, give the video a thumbs up and share the video. Okay, so once again guys, happy quilting, bye for now, and I'll see you on the next one.